Hey guys, let me quickly know if everything works, sound okay, video okay, and then we can begin with the stream for today. I see a few people around already. Good to see you guys. Um, but yeah, just a quick feedback. Everything good? Very good. Thank you very much. So before we start, as usual, a big thank you to Bybit, the sponsor of this show. They make this happen, so big shout out. And yeah, let's get going with this. We haven't really had any kind of volatility in the last few. I mean, pretty much in the last few weeks, right? Last 2 weeks been pretty boring. If you think about it, we're pretty much at the exact same spot that we've been 2 weeks ago. But still, we've had some like today and like pretty much in the last 2 to 3 days, we've had some movements that we can talk about. And also, we're approaching monthly close, so we're gonna go through the time frame, see what's up, and then I think I'll focus on your questions and maybe even do some altcoins that you guys want to see. I don't know. We'll see once we get there, right? So let me start with the monthly. So generally speaking, the monthly close is gonna be relatively soonish, right? So the monthly close is gonna be in roughly a week. What would I want to see? What would I not want to see? And what would be bullish? What would be bearish, right? So generally speaking, I think if we started going back up to resistance, close at resistance, something I'd rather not see if I were bullish, right? So let's say you want to be your bull, and we're discussing what you want to happen, what you don't want to happen, right? So if price goes up, closes at this resistance, that would open the chart up to kind of rate the high next month, as in go back above 10.5 and then go below, right? For me, that's kind of like one of the setups that I get regularly. You go up to resistance, close at or around the resistance, take highs the next month, and then dump. So that's kind of what I wouldn't want to see, like any kind of close at 10K in the next for the next monthly, or for like this monthly going into next month. Um, so yeah, that'd be the worst case, right? For bulls, which is kind of funny to think about. If you're like, okay, if price goes up, that's bearish, but it's just kind of how it has been working for me. So yeah. The most bullish kind of close that I could think about would be by us just chilling at 9.1, right? So you could argue resistance turned into support, even though it's not really clear, but that would at least be somewhat bullish in my opinion. So yeah, price a little bit down would be bullish, price a little bit up would be bearish. It's just, I mean, it is what it is, right? Sounds weird, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So yeah, bulls want to see it close at 9,150 or around 9,150. But like I said, it's still a little bit to go. I mean, we're gonna be able to talk about it next week as well. See how it looks then. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for the monthly. Weekly time frame, not much has changed. It's just been chop, right? We walked all the way into resistance, closed at resistance, got rejected by resistance, and now retested that resistance again. So 9.7, still an important area. As you can see, we got rejected there, and now we're kind of printing an ugly candle. I don't really want to get involved in any kind of long trades as long as that's still resistance. So I mean, I could see myself buying dips down here. I don't really want to be long into that resistance before we close above it. So that's for the weekly, but the weekly has not been. I mean, the weekly historically has been one of the best charts to trade, but in recent times, not so good. So yeah, that is one of the time frames that that I don't think is too important right now. We'll see once we get back to like 8K levels if we go there, or once we start closing back above resistance. But until then, not too interesting. Someone asked what would be bearish, like if we went down, what kind of level would be bearish? Because I said, okay, if it goes down to 9150 and closes that, I'd be bullish, right? And he was like, okay, how much would it have to go down to be bearish? And honestly, like looking at this chart, it would have to break this support for the monthly to be bearish. So I mean, if it closes back above, like at this resistance, this down here is the target, right? So if you're like, okay, if the top's already in and it goes down, where would it turn back bearish? And I think it would have to break this support down here, so break through the low 7Ks, and then maybe even break down here. But high time frame, I think it just makes sense to be looking for buys at these levels. Like you want to be a buyer at 7, or a buyer at if like anything really terrible happens at 4.5. So the monthly isn't really a time frame. Like it's not set up to sell, in my opinion, other than if it closes at resistance up here. But we will see how it closes, and if I change my mind. I mean, it's always going to have like strong opinions weekly held, right? If anything happens that convinces me otherwise, I might change my mind. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. So generally speaking, I want to be buying the dips. I just want to be buying the dips that really dip, not just, okay, we've had a 5% pullback, gonna jump back in. No, but like these kind of pullbacks from resistance to support, those are the ones that you want to be looking for, I think. Okay, answered that question. Weekly, we talked about 3 days been really accurate lately. We've just been getting rejected by resistance, and I mean, you could argue this is support down here, right? So it's just, where does the level come from, right? It's a level that's where we've consolidated, that's been tested, led to bounce, and then once broken through, led to the big down move, right? Not quite like super clean, but close enough. And we've held that level for the last few days, or like 3 day closes, but now we're testing it like straight up again, and yeah, starting to look like it might break. And if it does, where do we go? Range low, and that's, I think, better. Like you can see it better on the daily chart. And excuse me, this is super messy. I might actually move these because they're not interesting anymore. I mean, in general, like a lot of people are watching this ascending triangle thing. I don't really trade these, but it's always good to know where it is, so you can kind of make up like these kind of patterns, like ascending triangles, descending triangles, everything in that regard. In crypto, they tend to play out in the sense that they break out to the upside and then dump, or break to the downside and then pump. Very rarely do these patterns just straight up pump or dump. So it pays to have them, because once, like let's say this breaks down, right? The pattern breaks down. A lot of people in general will be really bearish. They're like, okay, it's a high time frame pattern. I'm just gonna short, and then they're gonna short into the horizontal support, which is range low as well. So range high here, range low here, and we visited the range high, kind of faked out above here, retested it, and then had this move lower, right? So what I could see, because we've already tested the range high, there's not really too much reason to go back up there. A dump out of the ascending triangle below the range low, and then either like an up move which I think would lead to an explosive up move above 10.5, or down move, which would probably be explosive as well. But I think the most likely kind of way for this to play out be like whether this is bullish or bearish, right? I think the most likely play is that it goes down here, and then we'll see. Just because range high has been tested already, support really hasn't. We've had this one stab right above the support after the range high test, but that's not enough for me. I think it has to break the range low. But yeah, it's just how I think about it. I think it makes the most sense would be like it going back down here. If it's bullish, like if it's just straight up bullish and it starts breaking out, it's probably going to take out 10.5. Reason being, we have clean highs there, right? But I think if that happens, like if it doesn't take a stab below, I think that's going to be where it starts dumping and then pretty much heavily dumps off. So bulls, I think, would be better off if it goes down here. Bears, I mean, bears are just like, this isn't the structure for bears in general, but yeah, I mean, these are the kind of areas for the bears to look at, I think. Like, this is the best for the bulls. And then the bears, look at these two supports down here. Okay, that's Bitcoin, like very, very short, like a conclusion or something, like a summary of some sort. Everything clear with that? Or is there like, are there any questions? Oh geez, Kretz in the chat again. I'm gonna get roasted. Gonna have to read some stuff. Don't make fun at Don while he's at work, Kret. Yeah, dude, he's merciless, man. Never leaves me alone. Okay, good. I'm seeing some people respond with it's clear. I mean, for me, I always look at these time frames, right? A lot of people ask, why are you like bullish on one time frame, bearish on the other? I always look at all of them, and then when I have confluence between them, let's say the monthly looks bearish to me, the weekly looks bearish to me, the daily looks bearish to me. That's a clean short, right? If you have the monthly bullish, the weekly bearish, and the daily bullish, well, that's more difficult to trade. So if you want to kind of increase the hit rate of your trades, I think it makes a lot of sense to just look at the big time frames, like the monthly, weekly, daily. I mean, you can even do it for the for the small time frames, right? If the monthly, weekly, and daily are bullish, and you get a dip on the 4 hour, that's probably the dip to buy, right? Whereas if the high time frames are bearish and it starts dipping, probably not a dip to buy, because a lot of stuff is telling you that this might start selling off, so you don't want to be a buyer. So that's the reason why I look at all these time frames, and I think you should do. Whether you draw the same lines, like a lot of people have the same lines on the, like they draw a monthly resistance, and I think that's completely fine. It's just not something that I do. So you have monthly support resistance levels here, right? A lot of people like to draw them, keep them on the chart on all time frames, and then you end up with a chart that has a lot of lines and a lot of boxes. Works, I think. You can oftentimes take trades off of high time frame, like even if the level is not there on the lower time frame. If it's there on the higher time frame, you usually get a lower time frame reaction to it. But I think it's better to just have it clear so you know what's going on, because if you have too many lines and too many boxes, it's easy to just get confused, right? So you have like price moves between range high and range low, right, in here, and then you have high time frame levels all over the place, and you don't know which ones you want to be trading. That doesn't really help you at all. So I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of make the chart clean. It's not only for Twitter. Like if you want to post your charts on Twitter and be like, hey guys, look at me, I'm really cool. It's also for your own sake, because if you only draw the important high time frame, or like in general the important lines and boxes, you know where to take business and where not to. So yeah, just a side note from me. It looks like everyone moves in the same trend as the SPX. Even this big drop. What are your feelings about this? Yeah, I mean, it's true. If you look at the traditional markets, we've just been pretty much. Let's look at the mini. This is the SPX, right? And now we compare that to Bitcoin. And you notice that it's pretty much the same, right? So yeah, there's definitely a correlation there. We've had a stronger one before, but yeah, I mean, you have to watch both markets, which kind of sucks, right? One of the beautiful things about Bitcoin has been that it's less correlated, but yeah, it is what it is, right? Got to deal with the market conditions as we're given. I mean, you just have like, I mean, in the end, you could kind of look for confluence. So if Bitcoin's at resistance and the SPX is at resistance, it's probably going to dump, and vice versa with support. I mean, that's kind of how I figured this out. Like SPX hit a top, and that was kind of what made me flip a little bit more bearish on Bitcoin, and it's kind of worked out. But yeah. Okay, Cred's explaining some TA stuff. I'll leave him to it. Hello Don, could you explain what would be a bull signal to buy back in 8.6 range low? Oh, so you mean what would make me want to buy down here? I mean, the easy answer is, let's remove all of this for now. Let's say this dumps, right? And it doesn't have to, but let's say it dumps. And it starts like going sideways here, maybe takes out the low, and then starts rallying aggressively. The moment it retakes the range low is the moment where it starts getting interesting for the bulls. So, I mean, I easily take that kind of trade, like look for a flip at 8.5. You could also, I mean, what could also happen is, so that would be one where I would be like interested in the long trade. What could also happen is a quick step below the range low, maybe even like a wick below these lows. So you get a dump off, quick wick below here, immediately bought up, maybe retested at some point, and then it goes up. Another kind of setup that you could take. Those are like the ones that I like to look out for. But in general, like you look for buying at support, and I mean, it doesn't really have to be at the 8.5 level. If you want to be like super aggressive, you could buy the 8.5 level straight up. But I would have to look at that on the lower time frame, see if there's buying there, see if there's actually anyone interested in buying that. So, you know, you have a wick down here. And what usually happens with these sell-offs, or like pretty much blow-off stops as well, whenever you have a level as like a low like this, and price moves down here, it usually, even if it consolidates, it usually takes a stab below that level just to stop people out that have their stop based around that, or around the low. So you could see something like that, and then quick spike back above with like big buying coming in, and that would be one of the setups that I would be comfortable playing as well. So there's definitely like a couple ways. There's no real easy answer. It just depends on how we get there. But yeah, so far, like on the daily time frame, right? And let's talk about this like current situation real quickly. Whenever you get these breakouts, right? And I mean, we've had this plenty of times. You have a consolidation, and you have a breakout and you get back in the consolidation. That's usually a bad sign. You don't really want to see that, and as a bull, because what this does is it gives bears an easy invalidation point, right? Let's say they like a bear starts shorting, they know, okay, it price shouldn't really start breaking out of the range again. So one, it shouldn't really start closing back above here, because if it does, that's another breakout. That means that this false breakout is starting to get invalidated. And also, it shouldn't really take out the high that it set, because this was all the trap, right? So you had a breakout, trapped all of these FOMO people, like FOMO longs. You stopped out all the early shorts, and then you went down, right? So you have all of these people trapped, like the FOMO longs trapped, the shorts obliterated. You don't really, like, you shouldn't see it price go back up there, because the longs could easily get out again, and in general, then you would have shorts trapped that took a short anywhere back in the range to target lower, and then you would have the opposite. So you would have shorts trapped down here, and then you could squeeze those to the upside. So whenever you get something like this, a breakout of something, and then an immediate reversal, that's true for Bitcoin. It's true for some markets, not true for all. But whenever you get these kind of instant reversals, it just opens up an easy short trade, because yeah, you have your risk set. It's the best thing that you can have in a trade. Like, if you know where to put your risk, you know where you put your invalidation, and it's easy to trade it, right? If you're just like in the middle of this range, and then, like, let's go back here, right? Let's say you have this and you want to short or long. I mean, where do you put your stop loss? I mean, if you long down here, you'd probably long it with a stop loss like down here. And then in that case, you got lucky, because that hasn't gotten taken out. But if you're like a few days prior and you're like, okay, I wanna take a short, and where do I put my stop loss? It's not really easy, because I mean, you still have the high set here. You could say, okay, this is the high, it shouldn't go back above there, but then again, that's range high, it's very likely you get raided. Or you say, okay, it shouldn't go back above here, which is fine, but then again, any kind of squeeze into range high takes you out, and then it sells off, right? So in the middle of the range is very difficult to take a trade, and even more so if you don't really have an invalidation point. This case like that would have played out, but most of the time you just get chopped out of trades like that. In the opposition, or like opposed to these kind of trades, where if it really goes back up there, it's probably gonna head higher. So I mean, that's just a much easier trade to take, because not only do you have the high time frame, or like if you zoom out a little bit, range high breakout that led to like this entire thing here is this and big, right? You have range, you have range, you have the breakout, you have the breakout, you have the instant reversal, you have the instant reversal, and then I mean, what it could do, go back up to like 9.5, which would be the equivalent of this, and then start dumping off, right? But yeah, this is a much easier trade to take. Excuse me. I've gotten way too much sun today, so I'm kind of like, my brain's fried. But I'm trying to make sense anyway. I hope I do. Okay. I think that's enough with Bitcoin. Any other questions about like anything that I haven't explained? I think the explanation that this thing is like the tiny version of this big thing is the best one I can give. And then if this starts breaking down, it's probably the case that this is the entire thing is gonna break down, and then we'll wait and see what happens below 8.5. Okay. Doesn't make sense to run a channel with CryptoCred. Always wrong. Oops, forgot to log out. Fuck off. Well said, good sir. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So, I mean, it's pretty boring, honestly. There's not much to say about this entire thing. It's just been sideways and sideways, and then even more sideways. I mean, we're all like, oh, we've like I see all over Twitter right now. Oh, this is such a big move. But really, what all we've been doing is just retesting pretty much the breakout, like the breakdown point. We haven't moved in 14 days, and then if you even zoom up more, we haven't really moved in the last 2 months. So there's not much going on. One thing that does like make me think it's more likely to break down, like I said, is this, and then also this. Something that you usually don't get if it's bullish. Like breakouts usually tend to be sustained. The thing that you could be watching, like if you're a bull and you really want to get positioned long and you're not already, is the bear invalidation that I told you about earlier, right? So if this starts closing back above this range high or whatever you want to call it, or this consolidation high, and then starts creeping up, I think it's very likely, like let's say this creeps back up here, it's very likely, and then starts closing there, obviously, right? If it's just this quick wick, that's not what I'm talking about. If it starts closing up there, it's very likely that it starts squeezing to this, which we've already tested once. So maybe we get a rejection, but ultimately go higher. Then we have this resistance here, which we've already tested. So I mean, maybe like a tiny rejection, maybe even a bigger rejection, but then I think it ultimately goes back up. And then we've already rated this high, so no reason to kind of go back there and then just rate it again without taking this out. And if it does so, like if it goes back up and breaks that high, probably gonna go higher. And it's at 10.5, right? And 10.5 is probably gonna break as well, because I mean we've tested it twice, got close a third time, and then you start getting a true breakout to like 11 to 11.5, and I think that's where you look to get the fuck out, because anything above like 11 I think is danger territory. Like if it starts going back up that route, I think even if you're like the biggest bull, if you don't get out at like 11 or 12, yeah, you're gonna lose a bunch of money, I think. But that's only if it plays out bullish. I think the likelihood of it playing out bearish are higher, but I'm watching both cases. And I'll probably take the long into 10.5 if it starts playing out like this. And then, I mean, 10.5 is probably going to squeeze a little, so that's why I'm saying 11, 11.5. But, yeah. Okay. I think that's as much that's as much as I can talk about this without boring you guys to death. What do you do to keep yourself from trading out of boredom, frustration, stuff like that? I mean, I've been like climbing the last 2 weeks, so I've just been traveling to certain places, like rocks in my area, and then just climbing rock walls, or going for a walk, or just playing some video games. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to do right now, even more so since like the Corona stuff's like eased up a little. Don't think that's gonna stay forever, but as long as it is that way, I mean, it just makes sense to enjoy the weather, right? Um, so yeah. Okay, enough about Bitcoin. I think. Any altcoins that you want to talk about? Like, do you want to talk about the majors? Do you want to go like? Do you have like any kind of altcoins, like smaller altcoins you want to talk about? I mean, now's the time to ask. I could just do the majors and then jump to the smaller ones, but I'll leave it to you guys. So definitely give me some cash tags, or just say majors and we'll quickly go through these, because I think they're starting to get interesting as well. Yeah, cred, you don't have any say. Ever since I ratioed you today, the spell's been broken. You can't bully me anymore. Now it's my time to bully. Okay, I see a bunch of Doge. Holy shit, why are there so many Doge coins? Okay, most are Dogecoin. So I'll look at Dogecoin first, and then we'll look at some others. Okay, Jesus Christ, guys! Whenever I ask for cash tags, I always regret it the second I do. But yeah, let's talk about Dogecoin. This has been my Dogecoin chart for ages, right? Reason for these areas are this is just generally range low, and we talked about ranges a lot in Bitcoin, so you should all be familiar with it. When you have a range that goes like this, right, it makes sense to buy the range low and sell the range high. A lot of people, myself included, like they say, okay, if a support gets tested too many times, you don't want to buy it, right? And that's true, unless it is in a fashion where you have where you do something like this. Like this is the general range, right? But where you consistently hit the highs and the lows, you wouldn't want to be like this is the range that you where you wouldn't want to be longing support. This is not something where you want to be longing support, or even if it hits the high twice or something, just because it gets tested so many times in a short amount of time that I wouldn't feel comfortable trading it around that range low. This is very different. So you have the range, and then you have this kind of where which starts establishing itself, right? This is resistance started here, and then you just go from one extreme to the other, right? I mean, even if you kind of draw a midpoint in here, it just crosses constantly. It goes to the lows, goes to the highs, goes to lows, goes to the highs. So this is just a cycle, and the cycle with very clear start and end point, which is the start point is around 20 sats and the end point is around 100, which is really nice because I mean you can take advantage of that, and I've done so. I mean I bought down here, sold in here, and sold somewhere in the middle of that. I don't even remember where I did, but I've been playing this cycle forever, so that's why I like the coin, because it's been very, very clear what's going on. One thing that does kind of concern me is that Dogecoin usually likes to consolidate around the lows for short amounts of time. So you have like this kind of consolidation, and then you just have like taps, very short taps to the support. In the current case, that's not the case, right? So we hit the support area, bounced a little, and then consolidated right on top of it for a very, very long time. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna play out again, or if it's just gonna dump off really hard this time and then start bouncing below 10 sets. I mean, very possible. I think in general, buying support in these kind of cases is not a bad idea. Even more so if you've done it in the past, because I mean, maybe it's just a psychological thing, but for me, it's like, okay, I've won with this trade, and what I've risked is nothing in comparison to what I gained. So if I buy in here again and it doesn't play out, I mean, I just give back a little bit of what I gained in the last few ones. And I mean, I bought in here and like sold a couple times. So I mean, Dogecoin overall, one of my best altcoins to trade. So I'm just gonna keep doing it. That said, a lot of people like to kind of buy into the sideways. It's not my kind of style. I try to buy altcoins in general when they range, break the range low, go back in it. So I want to buy them down here or down here, generally speaking. And this is starting to turn out into one of the setups that I like most, which is this exact thing, where I think it's gonna start dumping, it's gonna start accelerating. Kind of looks like it broke the support, and then once it sharply goes down, I think I'm gonna buy the dip into support, and support's 15 sats. Around there, I'm gonna try my best to kind of catch a knife. This could go to zero. I mean, don't get me wrong. This could easily go to zero, but then again, if it does, and I'm stuck in it, and it's very unlikely it goes to zero straight away, right? Very possible it goes to 15, goes up a little bit to like 20, and I see, okay, this is not what I wanted to see, right? So for example, if it did something like dump down, bounced a little, and then went sideways and started meandering downwards again, um, not necessarily what I want to see, or like if it starts like has this sharp V and then retests it again, I might just get out of the way. But even assuming it went to zero, I mean, it is what it is, right? Gotta risk something to make something. And then, I mean, if you're all in Dogecoin, it's your own fault if it goes to zero and you lose it all, because honestly, like, that's not the way to trade altcoins. But yeah, that's kind of like what I'm looking for. This line pretty much represents what I'm looking for. As you can see, there's not really a pullback that I like threw in that you could buy. These kind of cases, like you very rarely get like this clean cut case where you have price dump below a trading range, come back up, and then retest perfectly and go up. In general, altcoins like to dump out of these things and then just do this. And you gotta be ready to just buy into the pump once it gets back in the trading range. It's obviously the case that you don't always want to do that, because you often have like a dump below a trading range and it gets back in the trading range and just kind of goes like this, right? But if you know, okay, that's pretty much the best support level on the Dogecoin chart, and it's coming off of that with a big impulse move, I think it's fine to buy into the impulse. But I'm gonna be looking to knife catch, because I mean, it's very easy to hold something like, let's say this goes to 15 sats, I get to buy it. It goes to like 13 or 10 or whatever. I mean, I lose some, and it goes up and shoots up like I've indicated. It's easier to kind of hold that than hold it when it's like confirmed, and then it starts dumping back down again, and you bought into this pump at the high, and then you're like, oh shit. Like, that's harder to hold than just being in from the lows. But obviously, I mean, you run the risk of it going to zero, but then again, you'll always run the risk of it going to zero. And I think it makes more sense to buy it cheap than to buy it like cheap at support than to buy it at confirmation in this case. But yeah. I think that's enough about Dogecoin, right? I mean, it's just a cyclic coin. We've talked about it so often, everyone should be familiar with it. But yeah, it lost support. Like, it definitely lost support, and I mean, these two candles. I mean, that's not like, that's just 2 sats, right? It's a 7% move, 2 sats. But I think that might turn out into something significant. But we'll have to wait and see. I could also just see this go back up, right? Oh no, did I delete my line? Can I get that back? Give it back to me. Ah, good. Yeah, it could also just go back up, but then again, like, I'm not really like, if it goes up from here, then I just miss out on it, right? It is what it is. Like, I'm not really the one to chase every single pump in the altcoin sphere. If you miss out, it's sometimes fine to sit on the sidelines, and I think for this one, I might sit out if it just goes up. Okay, so we've had a few people ask about ETH. I mean, there's nothing happening with ETH. It's literally just going sideways. So if you want to look at ETH, it might be best to look at the last live stream that I did, because literally nothing's changed. But yeah, I mean, it's just boring. This is not something that I need to keep watching. I don't really see the obsession with ETH right now for everyone. And yeah, I mean, if you're a holder, just, I mean, it's making higher lows, so maybe just hold it. If you're a trader, I mean, there's better things to trade, I think. Okay, a lot of people ask about Link. Oh, Jesus, do I even have that on the list in here? Let me just add it. I know I've charted it, but can't find it. Jesus. So Link's going up again. No surprise there. I think we talked about it in the newsletter. That's, by the way, gonna be free starting from next week, I think. Just gonna have to figure out how to do it the best way. But yeah, maybe next week, maybe the week after. But like sometimes around then, we're just gonna share a link where you can just kind of add yourself to the mailing list. But yeah, Link's breaking out again. I like Link's such a boring coin because I mean, if you hold it, this is great, right? It's just been going up. I mean, you're up a shitload percent, but if you're a trader, this is actually not really moving too fast in comparison to other altcoins. So I mean, it's not really too interesting to me. Like I'd much rather be the guy that trades. Oh Jesus, I hate the name. But Tether, for example, like you have a clear-cut pump, and I mean this pumped more than Link did in the last months, even though Link's just been going up. So yeah, for a trader, it's not really interesting. I don't think the level's been working too well either. Like I mean, the chart's not too ugly, but really like there's no big pullback that you can buy. There's not really a good level to sell. I think this is just a holder chart. So I mean, if you're in it, you're in it. If you're trading it, I mean, all power to you. But I don't think, like, I don't have to trade it. I don't think it's very clean to trade. I could draw like support resistances on here, but in the end, like, this just been trending upwards, right? And you really haven't gotten like the perfect retest besides this one. So I mean, for me, it's just not a chart that I would necessarily like. You just buy the dips until it stops working. But I don't have enough trust in it to just buy it blindly, so I'm just gonna stay away from it, trade something else. But yeah, like this is definitely not a bearish chart. I mean, it's just clearly trending up, but I don't think TA matters much here. Yeah, it's at least not clean to me, and the Link USD chart is even worse. Like this is just complete shop. Take the high, maybe it does something with that, but like, what should I say with this? You could make an argument like, oh yeah, this is the kind of thing that it's going for, but I mean, this is just pulled out of your ass, right? This could go like this. Who the fuck knows? Like this doesn't tell me anything really. That'd be hilarious though. Imagine if this played out like just a year-long ascending triangle, and then there's something like Eve did, where it just breaks out and it just starts dumping. So yeah, not really. Sorry, but I mean, your lines are as good as mine, and with this, just don't think it's too interesting. Okay. I wonder if Don thinks XRP is dead. No, I don't think so. Like I like to trade XRP, and I think it's a good high time frame support. It's just not quite where I want it to be. Let me actually pull up a higher time frame chart. Oh, this is from way back. Like XRP used to have like a really nice cycle. Doesn't really have that anymore. But yeah, it's a nice high time frame support, right? If you look at in general at XRP, and then you have this. Obviously, this is where the box is based on, the box that you saw in the previous chart, right? So I mean, you have some support here. I'd be interested to buy. Like if it wicks down here, definitely gonna buy that. And down here, I'm gonna be looking for buys as well. It's just, I mean, this is eventually going to zero, right? That's my belief, and I'm pretty certain about it. Like at some point, this is gonna head to zero, so you're gonna have to be very selective with your buys. I don't think it's dead yet. I think there's probably like, I mean, we've had this pump, we've had a lower high here. There's very real possibility that it starts pumping like this again, makes another lower high, and maybe even goes back down, goes sideways here, does something like this, and eventually heads to zero. I mean, there's quite a few long trades to take in this, right? And there's good profit in those. Um, but yeah, you always gotta, like, if you're just in it to hold it, I mean, pray for a pump and then just get the fuck out, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. If you're like an XRP believer, think for one reason or another it's gonna replace the entire world economy or whatever. Like I've seen some shit. I mean, be my guest. It's not something that I'm a trader. I don't really like. If it does, cool. I don't think it will. Like even as an like from my limited um, knowledge in from like what I know about XRP, and I mean I've been in this space for a while. Uh, I don't think it will, but I mean if you do believe in it, I mean that's on you. And if it goes up, congrats. So yeah. Um, but yeah, I think this is actually going to be interesting relatively soonish. I mean, you look at this and it looks really close, right? This is still like a ginormous drop. If it goes back to like age-old support levels, right? From like 16, and then from the bottom um of the this was like caused by the Bitcoin Bitcoin rally into the Bitcoin all-time high down here. Um, if we retest that, it's going to be interesting again, I think. It's still a little bit off. I mean, this is still 40%. That's ginormous. But it's definitely time to pay it more attention, which is funny because no one really gives a shit anymore. Like, even the XRPA believers don't really talk about it much anymore, which is exactly what we want, right? You want to see something like the believers getting shaken out. That's why I like these kind of capitulation moves, because that kind of takes out the last ones of them, and then you get like a nice relief pump where everyone FOMOs back in. So yeah. There's a coin with go fuck. Someone asked for the go fuck yourself Don coin. Shit, you're creative, man. I'm just doing my best here. Man. But yeah, let's see if there's anything else interesting. Jeez, I haven't even heard of these coins, like of some of these anyway. On hit BTC, like, why the fuck would you ask me for this shit? No offense to whoever asked for this, but like, what the fuck am I supposed to make out of this? Like, what do you like? Hey guys, we have support here, and then we have like a trend line down here. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to draw on this? There's not enough history to like. This is like days old, man. What the fuck? Oh well, it's fine. It's fine. It is what it is. I mean, this is just like there's no TA. Like, if you think this goes up, you buy it. If you think it goes down, like sell it. Like, there's no TA that you can make based on this chart. You could go to lower time frames, right? But even then, like, what the fuck do you want me to do with this? I mean, whatever. I'm not gonna talk about it. I mean, appreciate the suggestion, but like, if you have like a chart that has like a few hours of history, I mean, it doesn't really make much sense to use TA on that. You want to be using fundamental analysis or like generally something else. Um, but honestly, dude, your analysis sucks. You really don't seem like you understand what's going on. You don't have sense of direction. Oh Jesus, Kret's already trolling again. I'm gonna have to block him. What happens if I block him? Tron, why are so many people asking? Oh, that's just one person asking for it like a million times. Let's reward him for nah. Like there's nothing going on with Tron, it's just going sideways, dude. Like could go up, could go down. That's kind of my analysis on this. Like it's in the middle of nowhere, it could go up, could go down. Sorry, bro. There's really nothing to say about this. I mean, if you trust in Justin Sun, yeah, you want to be a buyer. But I mean, if you trust in Justin Sun, you're insane, in my opinion. So don't reward spammers. That's what I figured. But I mean, this was just a short one. A lot of people ask about WeChain. This is my chart for WeChain. I actually got interested in this when it reclaimed the range, and I mean that's the trade that you take, right? From the reclaimed range to the resistance. It's kind of all you can ask for. I mean, if you want to, the thing is like the reason why you don't want to take it higher is because you run into this, which is massive resistance, right? So I think this is the trade that you take, and I mean, if you took it, pretty nice. I think that's like a 2x almost. Like if you take it from the close through to the no, it's Jesus, this is tiny. Yeah, it's 50% from the bottom. It's a 2x, but yeah, you got a 50% pump. That's pretty nice. Nothing to complain about that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much how, like, that's the trade. You take it from support to resistance. I mean, if you want to swing trade it, fine, I guess. Like, let's say you long the bottom or you long the breakout, and you took this trade, which is the trade that you take when you get the setup, right? And you just like, okay, I'm willing to give all this back. I mean, and you can just hold it and hope that it doesn't take this out. But I honestly could see it still dumping down here, like below this. I'm not entirely certain it won't. But this is not a bad looking chart in general. So, I mean, if you want to hold it, hold it. But I think, like, this is the trade that you took, if you took it properly. And, I mean, that's a decent trade, I think. But nothing like, if you're like a believer or like if you think this looks really good, which I'm not disagreeing with, I mean, you can keep it like, in these kind of cases, you can close some and then keep the rest and hope for the best. Oh, I'm never asking for cash tax again because then you have people spamming the same one like 10 times. Bitcoin diving down again. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, honestly. This isn't really good looking chart. And we can look at it on the 4 hour real quick. I had this fractal lined out last stream, right? That kind of invalidated the moment we closed the 4 hour above it. I'm not sure if I tweeted about it or not. But yeah, I saw this close back above, and then, I mean, you're just going to assume it heads higher. That's just how it goes, right? Whenever something gets invalidated, it usually goes quick. That's what it did. Rated the highs and then dumped back off. And really, it shouldn't have gone below this. And it even retested it down here. So even the low time frame's not looking too pretty, in my opinion. And you start closing back below important support. So not too impressed so far. And I think, like, in general, like invalidation up here, like a close up here, you could still get like a stupid spike. Like sometimes you get stupid spikes on Bitcoin. I mean, look at this, for example, right? That can stop you out if you do it on like a hard stop basis. That's why I usually like to look at the closes. Let's do it this way. Like if it starts creeping, like if it just does something like this, straight out from nowhere, it's probably gonna dump as fast as it goes up, right? But if it does something like this, and it starts closing back above this, and starts creeping back up, it's probably gonna break this and then head higher. So it depends, like, it depends how price gets to an area just as much as if it gets to the area, right? If you just have spikes left and right, it's just illiquidity or like a stop run or something. So there's difference there. Yeah. By the way, because I forgot, and Cred's gonna scold me again. Don't forget to like the video. Um, it does help, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's just a click away, right? So click on that, like whatever, if you liked it. If you don't, just press the dislike. I think that's fair. Like that's a fair trade-off. If you don't like it, just dislike it. I'm not gonna be insulted. Thoughts about max altcoins looking really bearish while small caps look to have bottomed already? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. No idea why that is. I'm very, very certain. Like, I look at Bitcoin Cash and I'm like, this is what I see. And I drew this once we bottomed, right? It just looks absolutely trash. Like, you look at this is gonna break down. Like, I'm almost certain that this is gonna break down. If it rallies from the support, it's gonna get smacked down here and then just dump. Like I'd say the chances of this dumping are more than 7. Like in my head, this is almost a certain one where it's gonna take at least the low, and I think it's probably gonna dump lower. Like I look at this is bearish to me, like clearly bearish. I wouldn't want to buy the support, right? And I look at all the other big coins. We didn't talk about them today, but I mean they're pretty much the same as last week. Uh, Same situation applies. EOS, I mean, this is just bearish, right? You have a range breakdown into consolidation, no bounce, nothing whatsoever. This could obviously go up. I mean, these can always go up. It doesn't mean okay, this looks really bearish. It's going down 100%, but the chances of it going up are much smaller, I think, than it going down. So I look at these, and these look very bearish, and I look at VeChain that we talked about earlier, right? And this doesn't look too bad. Like I wouldn't necessarily like because someone asked, okay, what about VeChain? What do you think about it? Like I'm not necessarily super mega bearish here. Like I wouldn't short this at this resistance, even though it's a resistance, right? But I wouldn't long the bigger coins, even though they had support. So I mean, I'm more bullish on these smaller ones. Um, Much more bullish, in fact. I'm still not sure, like, still not 100% sure that this is going to go up, obviously. But yeah, there's just something weird going on where the small caps are just much better looking. Um, we could get something like the big caps dumping and the small caps just diving after them. We've seen that before. Um, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. Like, you're gonna have to be nimble with these ones. Like, if they start dumping aggressively, it's probably best to just get out of the way. But then again, like if you get out of the way, like let's say this dumps really fast, and then you get out of the way down here. I mean, you're gonna be happy that you did once it like trades down here, but then it's probably gonna do the same as the other ones, where it's just one straight candle up. So yeah, it's difficult. It's the reason why I'm staying a little bit away from all of this because I just don't know. And I mean, that's fine, right? If you don't know, you don't have to take a trade. And I think with these big ones, I mean, they look bearish, and with the smaller ones, they look decent. So there's kind of a divide there, and you usually want to have at least some confluence. Joris playing the copy pasta game. Good to see that in the chat. Um, yeah, Raven is one of the difficult ones, right? Technically, this is the bearish retest, right? And it's also below range low. And it also hasn't made like a V bottom. So I mean, it's not looking too terrible if the small caps keep pumping, which I'm not entirely certain about. But in general, like this is bearish retest. If I'm like completely objective about it, this looks like it wants to head lower rather than higher. And if that's lower, based on just here, based on this retest, or if it's lower based on here and then down. I think in general, like if I'm completely fair and honest, I think it's probably a better bet to be bearish on this. Doesn't mean you should short it. I don't even know if you can short this coin. But yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the ones where you actually can wait for the confirmation, because I mean the confirmation is not far away. Like that's 40%, and then you get a nice 30% move to range high, maybe even take a little bit higher. But yeah, I like, as much as I want to be bearish on some of this stuff, because it's like it's in a pretty good spot where it could rally. I mean, this is just not really giving me any indication so far. When you say stop runs and raids, is that an actual group doing it, or is it just a turn of phrase people use? So it's a good question that one that we can talk about, right? Let's say, and I mean, excuse my terrible drawings, just gonna have to do it. So you have a range, right? And we talked about like positioning yourself and having like an invalidation earlier, right? So you have a range, and it trades like this, right? And then it starts going up, and really like, that's actually, it's difficult to explain with range. Let me actually make it a little bit better. We don't even need to have a range. You just make a high, and then you go back down, right? And in general, like, there's really nothing, like, it goes down. You can chase this trade to the downside, but really, like, if you short, there's really no indication that the top's already in. Like, you just don't know, right? I mean, you can chase this, you can start shorting here, but the moment it goes back up, where do you have your stop loss, right? Up here. And it's not necessarily like, there's not really, in my opinion anyway, maybe there is, right? And I just don't know about it. But there's not necessarily a group sitting there saying, okay, these are the highs, and there's going to be stop losses. Much rather than, there's a lot of traders sitting here, people that didn't chase down here, right? That want to position short, but they're like, okay, where do I actually want to get short? I want to get short once I have an invalidation point. Like, you spike this, you stop people out, and then it goes back down. Then you have an invalidation point, right? So the people that didn't short here, that didn't chase here, at that point, like, you have an actually, like, you have a stop run here, you have these people stopped out, all of these ones that chased in here stopped out, right? And then you can position yourself, and you actually have a decent stop loss, because you're like, okay, this is stop run. So it's just like a lot of people thinking the same way. And then obviously, like, sometimes, I've done this before as well. You just have like a high, and you want to get short, and price just moves towards it, and you want to get filled, and then you just buy a little. It pushes above the high, and then people get stopped out, so you can short, right? I mean, it's not necessarily, doesn't even have to be a group. It's just, if you want to get into short, it's just an easy way to do so if you know where stop losses are. So it's not necessarily like a nefarious group. Like, let's say you have 10 mil, a 10 mil short that you wanna enter, right? You can't just market sell that, right? Because then you slip a shitload. But what you can do, and if this kind of trades like this, what you can do is get this to break out, and then have your orders up here, and then all these people with the stops up there just get stopped out. It pushes into your orders, and you automatically get filled. It's just more of a, okay, this is how the market functions, because okay, there's a lot of stop losses in general. There's a lot of like people looking at this exact area, and then there's people taking advantage of that. It doesn't, like, that's not nefarious. It's just like people look at the market, and they're like, oh, I mean, if I want to short this, I can get in easy, and then that leads to like the sudden spike down, because you don't have any kind of demand up there anymore. And then people, like, for example, me, when I look for a trade entry, I'm like, okay, this is an easy invalidation point. So I short, a lot of other people short, it goes back down, and that's why the chart oftentimes looks like this. Because you like all these people, like then you get the people that chase again, right? So you have traders jump in, you have people that with bigger positions jump in, and yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like a evil market maker sitting there just trying to fuck you over. It's just smart traders knowing where to push, like if it's worth it to push a market in a certain way, or like patient traders waiting for something to happen, and then you have like the perfect storm, and that's kind of how it plays out. But I mean, that's a little bit confusing to explain, I think. Um, so yeah, like the easy way is you have stops at a certain place, and the moment you run them, it's easy to short into it. Like even if you just market sell, so people market sell into the liquidity that they have, and it just goes back down. And then you have also have the breakout longest that gets stopped out down here or down here. So yeah, a lot of people like to sell it as evil market makers, evil whatever. I don't think so. It's smart traders, right? And I mean the same works for the downside, right? This, for example, I mean, there's a few people that I know that took advantage of this, of the massive liquidity that was created by this kind of move, and then you can get massive positions as well. So will the stock market go down tomorrow? I mean, if I knew I wouldn't have to trade crypto, right? The stock market is way more difficult, I think. I mean, it's been a little bit easier in the recent times, but it's more difficult in crypto. So the more correlation you're going to get between the stock market and crypto, the harder it's going to be to trade, I think. So that's kind of like one of the reasons why I've been taking a little bit of a an easier time trading less, just because I mean the more correlated it is, the harder Bitcoin is to trade. So I mean, it doesn't really make much sense to just pretty much trade the SPX. Because I mean, if I wanted to trade the SPX, I'd just trade the SPX and don't have to go through Bitcoin. Wouldn't have to work with Gret. No, like with all bullying and joking aside, I mean, I fucking love the guy. Really good friend. So yeah, really happy actually with how it's all going. It's a lot of fun. How about I don't actually know DeFi, DEFI, whatever the acronym is actually pronounced. I mean, I'm just staying away, dude. It sounds like a massive Ponzi to me, and I mean, I've had some people try to explain it to me, but every time they do, it just sounds more like a Ponzi to me. So I mean, uh, yeah, all the lending kind of stuff that I stay away from, because I just like when you have a market that over leverages hard, right? You can easily punish them. And that's not only true for Bitcoin, it's also true for like lending platforms and shit. So, I mean, whenever I see that kind of stuff, I wonder, okay, who's gonna be the guy that figures out that if they sell this and this amount, they can just liquidate everyone and then get a shitload, or like the opposite, or like whatever. Like this, I'm just like terrified of these kind of highly leveraged markets, and even more like lending stuff always turns out over leveraged. So I just stay away. It's not my kind of thing. I'm much rather just trade Bitcoin on an ETH and that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's good gains to be made. So I mean, it's definitely a market that you can look into. It's just not something that I'm willing to do right now. Apparently, the 26% interest rates on BAT right now. Yeah, I've heard all about it. Like, there's a lot of people lending and then lending to themselves, and I don't know. It just sounds super Ponzi to me. But yeah, who knows? Oh, we've already gone on for 70 minutes. So I mean, I usually do an hour, so I think I'm gonna call it quits here. But yeah, thanks guys for coming by. I mean, I know the market's been pretty boring, so I appreciate it even more for you to come by, kind of check the stream out. Hope I get to see you next week as well. And this Friday is gonna be a little bit more chill. No guest this Friday. It's just gonna be all Cred and me. But we're gonna make it fun regardless. So if you're interested in like a little fun stream where we talk about stuff, come by on Friday, same time. And yeah, thanks again, Bybit, for sponsoring the show. Appreciate it a lot. And thank you guys for coming by. The Bybit links are in the description if you want to check them out. But yeah. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye bye.